Hello, Redlow friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Hello Redlow podcast. I'm your host, Terry Mullen, and I am so happy you're here. If you're new here, welcome. Redlow is older spelled backwards. I am older, and perhaps you are too. And I show up here each week trying to help each one of us step forward with our lives by navigating these life transitions, overcoming hard things, and rediscovering who we are now in this season of life. I have a great episode today, so sit back, listen in, and let's keep stepping forward. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Hello Redlow podcast. I'm your host, Terry Mullen, and I am so excited about my guest today. My friend Katie Cox is here, and you're just going to be blessed by who she is and her journey as a woman and the things that she's been through and how she's overcome a lot in her life and learn some really great things that can bless all of you and help you step forward with your life. Katie is passionate about teaching, training, coaching, and helping individuals become the best version of themselves. Her transformative journey of personal growth and spiritual development began as a young adult. Katie has celebrated over 32 years of sobriety. Congratulations. She has triumphed over an eating disorder and mental illness diagnosis. And she's confronted numerous challenges as a single mother raising children with similar struggles. Through navigating many life adversities, healing from toxic relationships and divorces, and grieving the devastating loss of her son from a fatal overdose, Katie has cultivated remarkable resilience, strength, and tenacity. Her personal triumphs have shaped her into an extraordinary individual, and you're going to hear that, and she inspires and empowers others. Today, Katie serves as a quality of life and success coach. With her extensive knowledge, personal experiences, and a wide range of tools, she empowers women in addiction recovery to create extraordinary lives with a focus on optimal health and well-being. Katie's mission is to help women thrive in recovery and live their very best life. Katie is also a super slow personal trainer, and we're going to talk about that. I'm fascinated by that. And she's an inspirational speaker. She co-hosts a podcast called Forever Spiraling Up, where she shares her insights and experiences to inspire others on their journeys of personal growth and spiritual development. Katie is forever spiraling up. So without further ado, please welcome my friend Katie Cox. Hello, Katie.
Hi, how are you, Terry?
I'm great. Thank you. You have so much in your background, and I'm just so excited that you're here. It helps that you have your own podcast, so you kind of know and feel very comfortable, I think, probably just talking here, right? And
Yes.
sharing a little bit about who you are.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, before we dive into this, tell me what a super slow personal trainer is.
So super slow is a method of weight training. It's a high intensity weight training. And basically, it's slow motion training. So it's a protocol where you're using machines, they're modified machines. So there's a constant load on your muscles. And you are doing a 10-second positive and 10-second negative repetition, speed of repetition, one set on each exercise until you hit what's called momentary muscular failure. That's where you can't move the weight anymore. And that happens within about 2 minutes. So it's a very intense workout, and you're done a full body workout in about 20 to 25 minutes. And you only have to work out once or twice a week to get the benefits. So it's really, I started doing this probably, I'm thinking almost 8 years ago. And I decided once we'll get into my coaching and all that sort of thing. But I was doing nutritional coaching at the time, and I thought, oh, this fitness is great with it. So I became a certified super slow trainer. And then those two, I was doing that. And then I was like, well, it's more than just the physical, it's body, mind, and spirit. So then I developed a coaching program, and we can talk more about all that. But yeah, so it's very safe, efficient, and effective way of exercise. So especially as we age, if we're not our muscle will atrophy. So if it's
Okay.
just part of the aging process. So if we're not doing some sort of weight training as we age, we're going to be losing muscle. And so it's really important. I mean, especially as women, we can break our hips if we fall and that sort of thing. Men too, but women seem to have some more. As a matter of fact, this whole protocol was developed by Ken Hutchins, who was doing a study on osteoporosis. And what he found is that, the women, when they were using this protocol, it was strengthening. And it's not just for your muscles, but it's strengthening your bones, it's your ligaments, it's great for your heart. It's just a full body overall exercise. And that's where the protocol began. So it's great. I love it. It's really efficient, effective, and safe, and especially for those who are older. My oldest client is 89 years old.
Wow, that's
Yes,
super
I know.
cool.
I know, but I've also had my daughter doing it when she was in her early 20s or mid 20s. So yeah, so it's
Wow.
yeah. Anyone,
I
any
wish we I wish we lived closer because I'd have you help me. But so when we're off camera, you're gonna have to help me through this because I'm super intrigued with that. I believe in kind of that resistance training. And so just the way
yes,
you were explaining it
yeah,
could probably really help me too. So really
yeah.
fascinating. I that just kind of jumped out. I was just like, what is that? That's super cool. Well, I'm gonna let you just kind of share a little bit if you don't mind. I'm really intrigued by your story and obviously with your bio that I read. I mean, there's a lot of depth to you. You've been through a lot in your life. And for me, part of my journey and when I wrote my book really is just sharing my story too and just the transition of overcoming hard things. And so I'm really intrigued with women who've had to overcome a lot, kind of start again midlife and that journey. So you have a lot of wisdom and a lot of things you can share. And I would just love for you just to kind of dive in and tell a little bit about your journey and to arrive at where you are now as a coach and blessing and helping other women, if you don't mind.
Sure. No, so it's interesting, Terry, because I got sober initially in 1989. And and the longer that I've been on this journey of recovery, the longer my story gets. And
Mm,
so it's not like it's just a one and done. It's like I feel like I have a story of hope, because as my life has grown and as I have grown and evolved on this journey of recovery, there's just been constant trials and tribulations along the path, and I look at them today as they're all opportunities for my own personal growth and spiritual development. But to back up a little bit, I actually in high school is when I first started using alcohol and marijuana primarily. And it was probably my sophomore year in high school when, along with the getting high, smoking the pot, we would start eating. We call them the munchies, and we're
yeah.
eating late night and that sort of thing. And I started to gain weight. And if I even back up earlier in eighth grade, when I started to develop as young girls, we, start to go through the adolescent stages. And as I was developing, I had a lot of, I will call it, I had just a misperception of my body. I didn't like my body and I
Mhm.
thought it was fat. And that's kind of where a lot of my distorted image came from, and later on I learned that it's more than just a distorted body image, but that was the beginnings of it. And so I started dieting when I was in eighth grade. And then, like I said, by the time I was a freshman in high school, that's when I started dabbling with alcohol and pot, and I would start eating more, and then I started gaining weight and I didn't like that. And so I'm thinking it was probably my sophomore year in high school when I started with bulimia. So that's binging and purging.
Yeah.
And that continued. And then my alcohol and drug use continued. So by the time I was a senior in high school, I had pretty much a full blown eating disorder, and I was drinking and using alcohol and or pot, on a daily
Yeah.
basis. I was still during those high school years, I was very involved in school, and I was on student council, and I did well in school. I was friends with a lot of different people. I kind of camouflaged and fit in with everybody. I tend to be a people pleaser, wanting people to like me and getting that outside validation. And so, I was friends with the burnouts and the jocks and the preps and whoever it was. I liked people. I was social and that kind of thing. I went off to college, and it was there that that 1 year being away at school, that I realized like I've got a problem with my eating disorder.
Mm,
And I'll back up a little bit. The first time that I really had some suicidal thinking was
mm,
on um, Valentine's Day, my senior year in high school.
yeah,
And it was at that point that I just was very depressed. And I shared with a friend, and she's like, "You have to talk to your parents about this." So I did. I wrote my dad a note, and we went out and we talked. And, at that time, Karen Carpenter had just died. She had anorexia.
yep,
And yeah, so this was, early 80s. And, um, I shared with him that I'm smoking pot and I'm drinking, but the eating disorder thing, I think, just really scared him. And so he
yeah,
wanted to get me some help. And so he, I was raised Catholic, and so they sent me to a nun who really knew
wow,
nothing about addiction
yeah,
or eating disorders or anything, especially at that day and age. And it was a start, but it didn't really help much. And then I had gone off to, college, and things worsened. And so I decided not to go back to school my sophomore year in college and to get help for the eating disorder. So that was the first time that I addressed the eating disorder, so to speak. During that period, we did not, while I was in therapy, I did not address any of the drinking or drugging. That was
yeah,
kind of just not addressed. And my friends all then went back to school, and I got into a relationship. And I was with somebody who, within 4 years, we were married and divorced,
yeah,
and that was at 23. That was when I got divorced. And so these patterns kind of repeated themselves over life. The eating disorder was pretty much resolved, although I will say once I got sober, which was in 1989, which was like a year after the divorce.
yeah.
uh, I'm kind of jumping around here, but I hope you're kind of following me.
I'm following you.
Okay,
I
good.
relate a lot because I had an eating disorder right around that same time. So I'm really
Okay.
tracking with you.
Okay.
This is great
Yeah.
information. Really good.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'll tell you what happened though. What was kind of interesting. I After the divorce, I was invited to attend this retreat at the church that I grew up in.
Hmm.
And my dad used to be a part of this group. It was called Christ Renews His Parish. And again, like in the Catholic faith, it was, the way that it was, you didn't really have a personal relationship with Jesus, so to speak. It
Yeah.
was more just like you went to church and there was God and that kind of thing. But this whole program was a spiritual renewal program. And it was the first time that I really started to realize like I wasn't a bad person, like I was a good person, and that I was loved, and that I am loved, and I am forgiven. And I started this personal relationship with Jesus, and I actually became a part of this group, because then what we would do is we'd put on these retreats every
Hmm.
6 months. And so I was living this double life though, because it was like I would be there, we would be doing shared prayer, reading
Yeah.
scripture, this sort of thing. And then I would leave there and I would go out. And once I would start drinking and using the drugs, and then I'm living this other. So it was like having two lives.
Yeah.
And that went on for a year. And I remember just looking at the spiritual directors of the women that were guiding us. And I was like, I want what they have. I couldn't understand like what was wrong with me. So a year later, when I hit my bottom, and that night, I won't spend a whole lot of time on it, but basically what happened, for anybody who's listening, who may have an addiction issue and not really know, what happened was I was making all these promises where I wanted to like not drink, and I wanted to not get high, and I was going to a concert, and I wasn't going to drive. And next thing you know, I'm in my car driving to the concert. I got people smoking pot in my car, and we stop and we buy beer at the store, and they're drinking in my car. Every promise that I made, I couldn't keep that night. It
Mm,
was like I realized that I was not able to follow through with what I was saying. And so I
mm,
went back to this therapist, and I actually left out a little piece before that. What happened was I got into, after my marriage, after the divorce, while I was still part of this spiritual renewal group, I got into another relationship, and it was a toxic relationship, and it was based on drinking,
Mhm.
so again, it was this living two lives, and
Yeah.
feeling guilty about the life that I was living, knowing that, it was just, it was a lot of inner conflict. And he ended up, I was living with him. He ended up throwing me out of the house, and there was a whole lot of shame and embarrassment and guilt. And I got suicidal again. And that's when I didn't want to leave the house, and I didn't know where to go or what to do. And I thought, oh, I'm going to call that eating disorder therapist who I'd met several years earlier,
Yeah.
before my previous marriage. So that's what I did. And it was her, she is the one who had recommended don't isolate, continue to go out and socialize, but just have one drink and then switch to water or juice or pop or something else. And so that was like my period of controlled drinking, which I kept failing at. I couldn't do it because once I put the alcohol in my body, it was like I would crave more. So that was in the mix too. So finally, after that last that night in 1989, September, it was September 11th, 1989, the
Wow.
night of the concert. And then I went back to her and I just said, I can't do this. And so she said, why don't you go for an evaluation, which I did. And that's when I found out that I was an alcoholic, an addict. And I joined this outpatient treatment program. And so that was like the first turning point, because then it was like everything, I started going to AA, and everything that I was learning in AA, I'm like, this is the exact same thing as Christ renews his parish, except for it's just a God of your own understanding. So the two of them just dovetailed perfectly. And it was like, now I could make sense of what was going on from the time that I had that kind of first spiritual awakening and kind of began that journey, that spiritual journey as an adult,
Yeah.
and started this personal relationship with the God of my understanding. And then I was sober. So it was like my life started to change and things went, it was really, things were going well. Um, I ended up getting pregnant. Well, before I got pregnant, I decided to go back to school because my whole life I wanted to be a teacher. So
Mm.
I went back to school, and there was a friend of mine who I had met in treatment, and we became very close friends. And he almost became like a part of our family, like my parents and my siblings, because he was around a lot. And then at one point, our relationship became a romantic relationship, and I got pregnant.
Mhm.
And that was then I ended up being hospitalized, because I went into another depression, because I thought, oh my gosh, like I was going to get married, but I was having a lot of doubts, and I was already married once. And at this point, I was, 25 years old.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't know if this is what I want. So anyway, I ended up becoming not getting married to him and becoming a single parent and raising my son. And we had a parenting agreement. And when my son was 3, again, my story is really long, and I'm kind of spending a lot of time back here when a lot's transpired since then. But when my son was 3, my dad passed away, and he had cancer, and it was a rapid cancer. And it was during that time then that my son's father and we just happened to get back together. Not we were talking about parenting and insurance and stuff like that. And we just kind of missed our friendship, So we
Yeah.
started dating again, and within 6 months we got married. And then I got pregnant on our on our wedding night.
Uh.
And so it was, yeah, fertile myrtle. It was like, you know, and then 2 years after that, I got pregnant with my next daughter. But we had still some of the same issues that we had, prior to, when I got pregnant with my son. So we were together for 7 years,
Mhm.
and married, I should say. We were married for 7 years. And it was then that it was in 2000, and I was over 10 years sober, and I ended up going to and it was a wedding in the Virgin Islands, and
Mhm.
he was at home with the kids, and I was there, and I relapsed. It
Mm.
was things with my son were very hard, and we're not going to spend a whole lot of time
Yeah.
on because that could be a
Yeah.
whole episode within itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my son, from 18 months, he had the terrible twos early. When
Mhm.
he was 12, he still had the terrible twos, and then he passed at age 27 from an overdose. And
Wow.
his whole life was hard from conception to death. And I mean, he had a heart of gold. He was just a beautiful soul and
Mm.
was my greatest teacher. And I feel so blessed and fortunate that he was placed in my care because he had a lot of just, a lot of special needs and
Mm.
emotionally and mentally and yeah. So and actually that is the dynamics, whether there's a genetic component to this,
Yeah.
likely is,
Yeah.
but there's also aside from genetics, there's environmental factors. And
Yeah.
I just believe a lot of this stuff is in our DNA and gets passed down generation after generation. And, it's all opportunities for our own personal growth and healing and
Yeah.
part of our soul's journey, And
Yeah.
so I can see how he was placed in my life for a definite reason. I wouldn't be who I am today without him.
Mm.
But it was really very hard on
Yeah.
our marriage, on our family, everything.
Yeah.
And
How long ago was that, Katie? Because I know you. I've seen you post picture of him. I mean, just a darling young man. So, how long ago was that he passed away?
4.5 years. So that
Wow.
was July of 2019. And it
Wow.
was
Right
just,
before COVID.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Thank God, actually, honestly, and you know what, Terry, I mean, like, I miss him so much, but
Yeah.
I am so grateful that he's at where he's at right now because
Yeah.
this life was really very hard for him. And
Mm.
he tried for so many years to get sober, and for 10 years, he had a heroin addiction. And it was like he would go through detox and he would get sober. And I could just see this light in him. And I was just,
Mm.
it would be so exciting. And then he would relapse. And he never worked the steps of the program long enough to have this transformation that happens in recovery. And it's a spiritual program, the 12-step recovery program.
Yeah, it
I don't know
is.
how familiar you are with them, but they're basically tools for living a spiritual program,
Right.
and or a spiritual life. and
Right.
and he just never was able to get that aspect of it.
Mm.
And so it was just a lot of struggle. He was homeless the last 2 years of his life, and
Mm. Wow.
it was hard. But again, there was just so much love, but it was hard on our relationship, on our marriage too. So,
Yeah.
so at that point when I went to I think it was St. John and St. Thomas for this wedding, um, I can see in hindsight they call it relapse progression, that
Mm.
there's a progression that happens before you actually pick up the drink, and
Mm.
so when I look back, I can see where that was part of it. Although I was still going to meetings, but too,
Mhm.
I have had many mental illness diagnoses myself. Just depression, anxiety,
Mhm.
ADD, bipolar, adjustment disorder. I've had so many. And part of my story and my journey is that, like, today, I
Yeah.
don't even take pharmaceutical medications.
Wow.
And that's really uncommon, I think,
Yeah.
here to have the history that I've had, and it's I have found alternative ways, again, body, mind, and spirit,
Yep.
nutrition and
Yep.
detoxifying the body, and using meditation and fitness and so many other tools in my kit, other healing modalities.
Yeah.
And there's so many, which again, I won't get into all of that now, but that's really where I have been able to transform my life and overcome a lot of these things and heal. Honestly, I feel healed from some of these things. And that's why I love helping other
Mm.
women in recovery, because I see so many women still living, I'll call it a status quo life.
Yeah.
They put down the alcohol and the drugs, but they're still binging on sugar
Yeah.
or food addiction or smoking or,
Yeah.
spending or what.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to escape. And even for
Yeah.
me, busyness. I realized
Right.
during the pandemic, one of my things was after my son passed, I was building my coaching business and
Yeah.
I was going, 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 going. And then I'm fast forwarding. I'm time jumping here, but
Yeah, no, that's good. It's good.
yeah, it's I realized that I really had to slow down the last couple of years to
Yeah.
really heal and grieve and
Yeah.
just kind of just be, and
Yeah.
do so much. And this past year is really, I'm trying to, refocus and start creating another new vision for my future because I'm at that state where I need to, kind of start moving forward again,
Yeah.
because it was kind of some setbacks there.
Yeah, one of the things I just want to touch on, I know we're not going to dive into it too much, but it's just super intriguing because I don't know if you know Katie Jolly in our group as well, but she similar, like I find it so fascinating when there's been some kind of an addiction or mental illness and the brain health issues
Yes.
that really just going clean from all of it. Like it's almost like it triggers other things. And I know, I mean, I had an eating disorder for many years in my 20s. So I fully my throughout my whole 20s. I
Yeah.
understand or late teens, early 20s. Anyway, I understand that they say you can kind of just it just becomes like one you can kind of cross addiction, right? So
Right.
it's just fascinating. You're the second person hearing this in real depth as to, even this over counter stuff. It all just kind of triggers everything. And certain medications kind of trigger other things. And to get healthy is just going clean. So
Yeah.
that's super fascinating. Just
Yeah.
super, super fascinating. Um, and the other thing I just wanted to touch on that, I mean, you really made me tear up. And I know we're not going to spend time on this with your son, but just your love and your compassion to help other people from a place of embracing who they are. You allowed him to be who he was,
Yeah.
and you loved him enough to let him go. And to feel like I feel your peace and your joy. It literally almost chokes me up as I'm talking to you about it. It's
Yeah.
really powerful, Katie. Like I think as a coach, that has to come through with you that you can love people enough and yet speak truth to them and help them get to where they need to be. It's
Yeah.
just so
It's
anyway.
Yeah, no, and that's it's interesting too. And as you know, I mean, working, I say working, you know, family members, I mean, that's been a whole nother thing. I also go to Families Anonymous and I also go to Al Anon. And those are more about relationships with people who you love who are active in addiction or whose lives have been affected by addiction. So that's really even though I still go to AA, like I don't crave alcohol or drugs or anything. My whole thing in recent years is really navigating these relationships with loved ones and even
Mm,
friends in recovery who I care about, who yet I'm powerless. You're
yeah,
powerless over people and places and things and situate everybody basically other than yourself.
right,
So with my children, it's always been this thing, when they were young, trying to, you're responsible for them. So trying
right,
to get them the help that they need and to get them, the treatment that they need. And when they're young, if their treatment is recovery because they've got addictions, well, then it's driving them to the day by day club for a 10 o'clock young people's meeting on a school night. You know what I mean? And so
right,
it's a really alternative way of, I shouldn't say alternative, but it's not your normal parenting thing.
right.
But once they were adults, 18, then it was kind of like, okay, I'm not responsible for you anymore. Yet I love you and I'm still here. And it's the wanting to help them, knowing that there's a way out, but knowing that they're on their own journey. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And
yeah,
so it's like loving and accepting them where they're at, but always encouraging them,
yeah,
to get the help and to be there to support them. There's a fine line, between
yeah,
enabling and helping. And that's what I love. There's this wonderful reading we read in Families Anonymous. It's called Helping, but it's like, we can't do it for them. All we can do
right.
is love them where they're at. And It's really this whole thing around boundaries. They're
Yeah.
really, they have to be flexible. There are no hard lines because,
Mm,
especially like with my son, for 6 years, I knew that if he couldn't stay sober, that the possibility that he would die was there. And then the last 2 years of his life, I knew it was likely because he was already overdosing and, with Narcan and being revived and that kind of thing. It was like, it's just a matter of time that he's gonna be alone where somebody's not going to be there to save him. And so it was like for that, I needed to allow myself in each given situation, if he was asking for food or if he was asking for a ride or if he was asking for money, it wasn't just a hard no, I'm not giving
yeah.
you anything. It was like, okay, where are we at in this? How toxic is it if I'm going to engage with him? A lot of my stuff is about detoxifying your life, not just food detoxification, but
Yeah.
what you see, what you hear, how you engage with your environment and people in your environment and that sort of thing. So it was like it was always kind of this putting the feelers out to see, if I get too involved here, how is it going to, because I can't go down with you, kind of like putting your own
Yeah.
oxygen mask on first,
Yeah.
and it was just such a blessing because the last 2 years and then last year especially, we were able to have every holiday together
Oh,
between Christmas
wow.
and New Year's. He stayed with me at the time. Another piece of my story that I haven't talked about yet was I did get married yet again for the third time, which ended in divorce right after the pandemic. But at that time, I was married and my son was homeless and he's like, I don't have anywhere to go for Christmas. So we talked about it and we decided that he could stay with us, but we were both on the production team at church, which meant rehearsals every night. And we said, you have to come to church with us and you can't be in the house without us. If we're
Yeah.
not home, you can't be there. And Terry, it was wonderful. I mean, he came and he was involved with us at church and helping
Wow.
out. And it was just so beautiful. And it was
Wow.
I just savor those. And it was like Mother's Day. He came out to church with me just to spend, and it was our last Mother's Day together. It was perfect. And so
Mm,
every single Thanksgiving, it was like every single holiday that last year of his life was just beautiful. It was just
wow.
perfect. And so I hang on to those
Mm,
memories and I'm so grateful for those. But at the same time, I know that his journey is his journey and
yeah.
my journey is my journey. And everybody has their own journey and
Yeah.
everybody has their own God and their journey is between them and their creator. And I can't interfere with it. I can just love and be the example.
Mm.
And so,
You're one
yeah.
of the first people I've ever talked to. I'm just captivated. That's beautiful sharing. You're one of the first people I've ever talked to about having boundaries fluid like that. Because in the end, I mean, you were able to have like boundaries within boundaries, but you were able to be fluid to love, but give parameters. Like I've never heard anybody say it that way. And in the end, it was a gift. Like it was really a gift, Katie. Like I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, wow, because usually people say there's this hard, like, no, you don't give an addict, you don't do this, you don't do that. But to hear you have like this flexibility, I think is super cool. I
Well,
think it's
thank you.
really empowering. And I think that would is probably just a real gift in your coaching, how you help people, because that takes away the shame of people. That lets them be a human.
Yes. Well, and this is what like I share with the people who I work with. I say, listen, where you are, I believe that we're all creations of God and we're all perfect, whole, and
Yeah.
complete in God's eyes. Yet we live in this three-dimensional world where things are what they are, and we
Yeah.
want to improve. We want to be better. We want to grow and evolve, and that's natural.
Right.
But it's like we need to love and accept ourselves exactly where we are and where we're at, yet we can strive to improve and no shame. So it's a
Right.
few steps forward, a few steps back. And that's where this whole forever spiraling up my podcast
Ah,
because it's always, it's not, when a spiral comes back a little bit, it goes up,
yeah.
it comes back a little bit. And so it's not like this straight line up. It's a little bit forward, a little bit back. And
Mm,
sometimes, like, and even when we're in the dark night of the soul or in those periods of growth when we're outside of our comfort zone and it feels so icky and yucky and it's like we're don't like how we feel and that sort of thing. It's like that's where the growth takes place. And it's
yeah.
even there that if we can have the self-compassion and
Yeah.
love ourselves and just know that this is part of our opportunity for growth. It's not going to stay this way. Nothing ever does. Everything is always changing.
Yep.
This too shall pass, and this is it's happening for us, not to us, you know,
Right.
and we will learn from this situation, whatever it is,
Right.
I like to believe that everything is in divine order, that there is
Mm,
some plan that I most often don't understand. But I can have a vision and I can have my goals and I can have what I'm working toward. Yet it's not always going to go that way. We have to
right.
readjust along the way. And my path has been very jagged,
Yeah. Mine
you
too.
know. But
Right.
it's kind of like I said, I feel like when even like this last after this last I don't want to say a failed marriage, but it was a failed marriage. I thought it
Yeah.
was going to be for the rest of my life. I really did.
Mm,
But even in this, I can see, wow. And there, like I said, the last few years, there's just been so much reflection and healing that's taken place and a lot of
yeah.
introspection and inner work, but what I realized, because it's like, how did I get with all this years of personal development? How did I find myself in this situation, But it's like peeling the layers off an onion, and there's
Yep.
those four issues. And I realize it's more stuff around the codependency,
Yep.
not listening to not seeing those or seeing those red flags, but overlooking them because there was other things that looked okay and better and being excited by those things and minimizing, so not being completely true to myself, my
Yeah.
authentic self, but again, there was so many wonderful things that happened in that marriage, uh,
Mm,
where again, like that's when I was able to really like leave my 9 to 5 job so that I
yep.
could pursue my coaching career. And, that had been a lifetime dream for,
Mm,
30 years. And so to actually do that, that
yeah.
wouldn't have happened if I wasn't in that situation. And the travel, I got to travel all over the world and do
Oh,
so many
wow.
beautiful things. I got to fly an airplane. I got to become scuba certified, things that were on
Mm,
my bucket list that I didn't have opportunities before because I was always a single mom and
yeah.
always having these kids with. So even though it was short lived and I thought it was going to be the rest of my life, I can see that there was some very unhealthy dynamics. It became very toxic during the
Mm,
pandemic, and I could see God did for me what I could not do for myself.
yeah.
The divorce happened in 6 weeks. It was like he
Wow.
filed for divorce. I didn't know that he filed. The house went on the market, and the divorce became final. And I found myself here, and it was like, what just
Wow.
happened? And it was then all the grief from the loss of my son came
Yep.
bubbling up, and then the grief from this marriage that I thought it was something other than it was. And so it was just a lot, But again, like I said, I've spent a lot of time the last, 2.5 years really doing a lot of inner work and healing. And there have been so many blessings that have come from it.
Mm,
And again, like I know that everything that I've gone through in my life has allowed me to be able to show up for other people who are going
yeah.
through similar things.
Yeah.
And, if you haven't walked in the shoes, you don't really know. I mean, you can be sympathetic, but really being empathetic and understanding the journey because you've been there and walked
Yeah.
that it I can see God uses, he turns our mess into our message,
A
God
100%.
things so that we can help other people. And so, I say, I'm open, God, just use me however you want. Show me where to go, show me what to do, tell me what to say and to whom, and I'll be there, because it's really, I don't want any of this hardship that I've gone through to go to waste, I
Yeah.
mean, it's like,
Yeah.
I feel like this is my journey in life, and this is what I'm being called to do, to use this to help other people navigate these, difficult situation. So,
100%. And this is a whole thing. Like, I love seeing women take the pain and turn it into a purpose. And that's
mhm.
really what you've done. You can really connect with women on a lot of different levels and make them feel like they're not alone. You can make them feel seen at the end of every podcast. I usually say you are seen, you are heard, you are loved, you are valued, and you
Yes.
belong. And
Yes.
you make them feel that way because you've been there. And it automatically just removes, it's kind of like just taking a deep breath because they don't feel alone. They don't feel the shame. They're like, somebody else is out there that gets me. Someone else has been there. Someone else has got on the other side of that. And
Yeah.
what a gift, Katie. I mean, so with your coaching, like with this, what kind of do you specialize kind of in any particular thing, or do you just help women? Obviously, I know you talked about this a little bit earlier with your just really kind of helping women kind of live, in their best life beyond, these hard things, beyond recovery, beyond a failed marriage, beyond probably even grief in some way or another, right?
Mhm. Right. Yeah. So, it's interesting because, I feel like it's still being revealed
Yeah.
to who exactly am I working with. When I developed my initial coaching program in 2019,
Hmm.
although I feel like my ideal client is a woman who is in addiction recovery, who's been sober for a number of years,
Hmm.
because getting sober is the first thing, but it's really because, like, I call it next level living. That is like
Mm,
because it's like we're always growing and evolving. And so even after being sober, there's other areas of life that are still, there's always room for growth,
right.
and so although I thought that's who my ideal client was or is, I really found myself working with women who women who are kind of caregivers or taking care of
Mhm.
other people, like taking care of their children with issues or taking care of their aging parents or kind of giving a lot of themselves. I'd like to think women who do too much, they're
Yeah.
and neglecting themselves, because
Right.
it's so easy to put everybody else's needs first, and not really and put yourself last on the list.
Right.
Um, so I don't know. I can work with really anybody in a lot of these different areas, but I think just because me myself, I
Right.
I am somebody who has, overcome these things in addiction recovery. There's just another level of growth that I feel I can help people achieve. Um, so, something that really was a turning point for me was in
Mhm.
2013. I was, I lost my job. I was working for a company and they laid off my whole department.
Wow.
And at that time, I just went to LinkedIn and I updated my LinkedIn profile and did some searching. And there was this personal development company that was hiring somebody for, it was like, business growth or something, business development, And so I read it. I'm like, this company looks so cool. So I applied for the job and they responded. And in order for me, part of the interview was that, or part of to be, you know, thought of for that position, I had to actually go through the 4-day seminar. And it was live in person at the time. It was called Life Book. And it was life changing. It was
Wow.
incredible. And I ended up, they hired me for that role. And so I was in that role for like 6 months. And it was then basically what did was create a vision for your life in 12 categories of life. And so you look at your premise, which is your beliefs around that area. You create a vision, you look at your why, and then you create a strategy, steps to get you there. And so then you do this in all these categories, and then you have this life book. Well, what happened was then they decided not to do that role, but they trained me as a life book leader. So that was the first time that I had a certification for coaching for this life book process. And the long and the short of it is I wasn't able to really get that business off the ground. I still had kids at home and I was I didn't have a following at that point. A lot
Mhm.
of say chiropractors or people who were already coaches who had a following were doing that sort of thing. But for me, what it did, my life started changing. And a lot of that started becoming my reality. And what I realized, that was the first time in my life that I ever gave intentional thought to creating a vision for my life. Up until that point, I was always in reactionary mode. I was just whatever happened, boom, all right,
Yeah.
I'm here now, I'm here, and always just responding to life rather than
Right.
planning intentionally. So that then is now, and then I since then went through Jack Canfield's Success
Oh,
Principles training. So I have
fabulous.
that under my belt. So when I'm working with women, I have a lot of tools in my kit. I use a lot of
Yeah.
life book stuff, a lot of the success principles. And then I did nutritional coaching with a nutritional system that I used. And so there's a whole lot of nutrition and wellness in that area. And then of course, fitness. So basically depending on who I'm meeting with and where they're at, we kind of go through, what it is they're wanting to focus on and where I
Yeah.
can assist them in bringing their quality of life to the next level. So,
Yeah. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, you have a lot in your toolkit. I mean,
yeah,
to really, no, and it's such a really good way to really help women, not only from your own experience, but just with the training you've had. I mean, the life book leadership is just
yeah,
a wonderful format with great pillars to kind of really help you equip other women. Um, because we have to have kind of some framework in some way, right? And
yeah,
so,
yeah,
it seems like you're able to really take that and guide them through this mind, body, spirit,
yeah,
next level living and feeling good about themselves and taking care of themselves, which is so powerful.
yeah.
Really, really cool.
Yeah.
Really
And I will
cool.
say one of the things, the challenges for me is that, I've been on this journey, 35 years, and
Yeah.
there are some people who are really kind of new to this. And so it's like just again supporting them where they're at, and it's baby steps, I mean,
Yeah.
just a 2 millimeter change can make all the difference just over some time. So it's just really trying to keep it simple and not do the fire hose where it's like boom, and sometimes it feels like a fire hose, but it's like just here's a lot here, but we take one little piece at a time, and it's about progress, not perfection, because there is
Mm,
no perfection. It's always just little tiny baby steps and celebrating your wins along the way. So it's a journey, and that's where
yeah,
I feel like I have a story of hope, because no matter what,
exactly.
even still today, we're in the holiday season right now, it's very bittersweet. Like this
Yeah.
time of year is very challenging for me in a lot of different
Mm.
ways. And but I have so much gratitude still, for the
Mm.
wonderful, messy, beautiful life that I have, and it's
Oh, that's
yeah,
such a golden nugget. So, just on that note, what would you say to somebody? Because I think the holidays trigger a lot of us, right? No matter where you are in your season of life, whether what kind of thing you're navigating, whether you're empty nester, you're away from your kids, or you've gone
yeah,
through some really hard things. We've went through COVID. People have gone through these job transitions. There's been loss. So,
yes,
what would you say to kind of encourage somebody besides call you, which I'm going to put all her notes and where you can connect with Katie, you guys, in the show notes because this is just awesome. And I love these interviews just light me up because I genuinely love hearing about other people's stories.
yes,
And it just lights me up and it just offers hope to all of us. We've all had people that aren't honest about the hard things they've been through and not being honest. We all have
yeah,
our hard stuff. And
yes.
so, what would you say in this season, in December, to give someone hope that's kind of struggling and feeling that loss and feeling alone or feeling depressed? What would you say to
Yes.
encourage them?
So, oh my gosh, there are so many things. But first of all, just be compassionate with yourself.
Mm,
Have self-compassion and forgiveness.
oh,
There is
yeah.
no perfection. We are always doing the best that we can do. If we could do better, we would do better. We just don't know. We do what we can. So I think being gentle with ourselves, have compassion, love ourselves where we're at, and do things that fuel your soul.
Mm.
It's like, listen to that voice within. What do I need today? What do I need to do? And I know for myself, I can be harsh with myself. I can have high expectations. My to-do list is a mile long. I can, Terry, yesterday I went to an AA meeting, and then after that I went to church, and after that I was going to come back home to work, and I was driving and I passed by this forest preserve, and I was like, you know what? I need to go for a walk. I need to be in nature.
Mm.
I haven't been out in nature enough. Here I live in the Chicago area. It's been a little bit rainy, a little bit cold, and so
Yeah.
it's like, so I stopped, and then after that I thought, you know what? I want to go. The Old Navy is having a sale right now. I need some jeans and some shirts, and I want to do a little Christmas shopping. That was not on my plan. It was a very spontaneous thing. So I went there and I did that, and it was like, just I went with the day, and then in the evening I went to an FA meeting. So that was a lot of spiritual fueling for me,
Yeah.
but it was like, that's what I needed. So
Mm.
it's kind of like, sometimes we just have to put the to-do list down and just trust ourselves to just be, and to just not do. We're human beings, not human,
Right.
but
Uh,
I think the holiday season.
we're human beings, not human doings. I love that.
Yeah, and it's just that, so again, and stress, like, I'm actually going to start a challenge. That's what I was working on earlier today. Um,
Fabulous.
yeah, and it's going to be good. So there's going to be just a lot of tools and techniques on how we can take care of ourselves to alleviate stress and anxiety during the season, and I mean, but that's year round too, there's
Yeah.
always that need, but it seems like things kind of, there's just, society puts a lot of pressure at this time of year, and it there's so many people who I talk to who have a lot of mixed emotions at this time. So I would say you're not alone, whoever you are, and
Mm.
reach out to somebody, connect.
Yeah.
Human connection is like the key, and to God.
Yeah.
One of the podcasts I did recently was connecting with God, to ourselves,
Mm.
to others. We need to be in touch with ourselves, be in touch with God, and connect with other human beings, because it's just,
Beautiful. I really think, as we were talking about this, I think the holidays trigger a lot of people. It
yeah,
triggers a lot, fractured relationships and just finances and just a
yes,
lot and all our shoulds that we think we should be doing. And I know you're a really structured person. You get so much done in a day. And so I love it that you shared that you just listened to your inner voice and to God and just went and did something to take care of your soul.
yeah.
I think that's a really powerful tool. And I love those shares. That's beautiful. Those are
Thank you.
great tips to kind of help everybody. But I'll definitely put that link, and I'd like to attend that challenge too. So,
Okay, all right, I'll let you go. It needs to
yeah,
be soon, because we're already into the holidays, and yeah.
perfect. I think that'll be great. And then obviously you can just hear so much wisdom that you have. You have so much to offer. This has been
Oh,
so much fun just to talk to you. And I know when we were connecting earlier too, one of the questions that I had is that I know you took this other challenge that I took, and I feel like you have a book in you at somewhere along the way because you have you have so much wisdom. So maybe somewhere down the road you'll do that too.
yes, well, it's interesting because I have published several short stories. It's called the 365 series, and one is on gratitude, and actually two of the stories that are on my about my son. It was right after I was asked if I wanted to be a part of this book. They're like daily readings, and
Yeah.
so I published those stories, and then I started a year ago writing my book that I was
Uh-huh.
going to publish. Um, and I didn't finish it, because what ended up happening, it was supposed to be done quickly. And I started getting into more of a story about, like, my son, and it
Yeah.
became more, it wasn't a quick kind of story. So, and honestly, I stopped writing. And this past summer, I went to try and find my writing, and I can't find it, Terry. So it's like, okay, maybe God's
Wow.
having me, like, start fresh. I don't know. It's got to
Yeah.
be somewhere in my
Wow.
computer, but I have searched and I can't find it, and I don't know. And I've just when the timing is right, the book will
Yep,
come,
that will
So
come.
again, it's just, again, divine order.
That's wonderful. And if you want people to find your writing, we can put that in the show notes too, because that's just you just have a
Oh,
great voice.
oh, thank you. Okay.
Really great voice. So we'll put that in the show notes too. There's just so much to you, Katie. I think you are an amazing coach. I really feel like you have so much to offer because you can really connect. It's so interesting. I think, at least for me, the journey I've been on, I remember when someone told me to coach too, and I was like, no, I've been through way too much. How am I going to coach anybody? I don't know what I'm. And she's like, exactly. That's exactly why you need to do it. And I think as we've learned along this journey, and just as a source of encouragement that whenever we go through hard things, there's a purpose in all of it, right? And I tell everybody that's your next purpose. Pay attention because that painful situation will help someone else. It'll help someone else move forward and have that hope and guide
Yes.
them towards a better life. And people are wanting to learn from coaches now. People want to get somewhere faster and learn from people that have had the tangible tools just like you, right?
Yes, right. I totally agree. I totally agree. It's interesting because I had this calling on my heart, like I said, probably 30 years. Like soon after came into recovery, I just felt like, okay, I love public speaking. I love sharing my story. I've just always been like that. And so it's been a long time. And when it finally started to, it still feels like it's been so slow, but I am having the experience, and I'm hoping that now that I'm kind of coming out of the dark night of the soul, my
Yeah.
most recent one, that God will really kind of give me guidance and direction as to, putting people on my path who I can love and serve, because I do believe that's my calling, is to love and serve
Mhm.
others, and just use my experience, strength, and hope in helping other people to live their best life. So,
And to spiral up.
and to forever spiral up. That's right.
And I
Yes.
can feel that. I can feel that in you. And I think what I love so much is that you're just really encouraging. And I think you give people guidance and, but there's this wonderful blend of guidance and love and support and encouragement and grace that's all mixed in, which I think is really lovely. I can
Thank
feel
you.
that with you. And I think that's what we all need, right? I mean, we don't just need hard and fast rules. We
Yeah.
just need someone that can come in, help us see the best parts of ourselves that we don't always see,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And have us help us have that next level of living, which I think you do very, very, very well.
Thank you
Um,
so much.
you're welcome. Oh, this has just been great. Is there anything that I have missed that we haven't talked about that you would like our listeners to know? Is there anything else that you would like to share that I've missed?
Oh my gosh. I think we've covered so much, and there's nothing really that comes to mind. Like I said, my story is very long and there are so many different aspects of it, but generally speaking, I'm grateful for the gift of life. I'm grateful for the
Mm.
gift of sobriety. I have two grand boys. They're
Oh,
5 and 7,
wonderful.
and they are like the light of my life.
Mm.
Like during this tough times, it's like I get to become childlike with them, because I
Oh,
get to run and play and go to and that's one of the things that I love about being healthy, vibrant, and fit, that I can't even keep up with them with the running, but I do get to run with them and play with them. And it's so wonderful to have that play in our life too, because it's
right,
not all serious, it's like
right.
we have to allow ourselves to be creative and to play and to just, become childlike, because being adult like all the time is hard.
Kind of sucks sometimes, honestly.
Yes.
And I was thinking, and this is the beauty of this holiday time, to see the holidays, to see Christmas, through their eyes, however that is, just the magic of it all,
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
such a childlike part of me too that I love all the fun movies, Polar Express, all these. Don't ever want to stop believing,
Right.
believing in God, believing in the magic of Christmas. I think just there's just such a beautiful part of this holiday time, as hard as it can be for me. The older I get, I realize it's not just about the gifts under the tree, right? It's the gift of, like you said, the gift of life and the gift of magic
Yes.
moments, the gift of play, the gift
Yes.
of healthy relationships, the gift for, being in such amazing shape where we have the energy. So all those things, it's beautiful.
And I just thought of something that I need to say, because I sent it to you. and I don't think you said it in my introduction because I realized no, because you didn't see it probably. And I meant to tell you that it was just such a minor addition that I put in my bio. And it was
Yeah.
about that all of this, who I am today, is all grounded in faith. This is not my doing. I always say, God, make me a channel of your peace. I like to
Mm.
think of myself as a vessel, and I want to be used by God to help transform lives. It's not me doing it. It's me showing up and letting God touch people through me. And so
Mm.
I really I don't ever want to take the credit. Yes, I'm the one who shows up and puts one foot in front of the other, and I have to leave the results to God. But really, it's kind of like this surrender and this
Mm.
letting go and allowing God's power to do the change. So I put in the footwork, but really who I am is not. There's, I don't want to say, there's our ego self, and then there's our spiritual self, our God self,
Right.
our higher self. And
Right.
I think it's important to give God credit where it's due. And so I didn't do any of this on my own, and God
Mm.
works through other people. And that's honestly, Terry, that's
Yeah.
why the connection is so important. I talk about people in recovery. Addiction is a disease of isolation. I like to think,
Wow. That's a
yeah, that
great nugget.
it separates us, and we are never separated because it's an illusion of separation,
Right.
but because we're all connected and we're all one in God. But it's like this what happens is when we're escaping, whether it's alcohol, drugs, food, sex,
Yeah.
spending, work, whatever it
Right.
is, and we're not connected, it's when we put down those substances or whatever that addictive behavior is, and we come together
Mm.
in unity. It's in community that God can work through each other, and that oneness takes place and the healing happens. That's why
Mm.
community is so essential. Like when I talk about, even like the women who I work with, lifestyle changes, any kind of change is hard to do alone. It's
Yeah.
like when where two or more are gathered, God is there. And that's when, the miracle, the magical that you were just talking about
Yeah.
takes place, so it's really incredible. So yeah.
That's beautiful. I'm so glad. It must have been intentional that I didn't read that because your description, the way you're describing it, is so much more powerful than just a sentence or a few words I would have said.
Okay.
So that's just beautiful. Because I was even thinking, even me back in when I had my addiction, I was bulimic, and I'm thinking, those things are kept. You're just right. They isolate you. There's a darkness of the soul that keeps you isolated, and you're doing it in secret.
Right.
So that's just super powerful what you said. It's so powerful. And I hope that sheds some light on someone that's feeling alone or isolated or dealing with any kind of addiction. And addiction is addiction is addiction,
Yeah,
right?
and everybody's got something. That's the
Everybody's
thing,
got
that
something.
everybody's got something.
Yeah. And those
So,
that don't admit it are lying. That's what I say. Because we
or they don't
do.
know it yet,
Or they
or
don't know.
they're
Fair,
blind to it. Denial is
fair,
huge. You know what I mean?
fair. Yep. That's
Yeah,
a better way to say it than what
yeah,
I just said. That's a
it's
much
okay.
better way.
But
She has,
that's what I say. Eventually, it's like our eyes are open to it. And,
yeah.
I always say, getting sick was not our fault, but getting
Mm,
well is our responsibility once we become aware.
another mic drop. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Really great.
Because, we grow up in our family of origins. Our parents
Yeah.
do the best that they can do, but our society and our, the dynamics around us, we take on these coping skills and mechanisms that help us to navigate life when we're young, but at some point they no longer serve us well.
Right.
Then and once that happens, then we got to do something about it. Once we know that, oh boy, this once, there's a flip side of the coin, what once was an
Right.
asset becomes a deficit. It
Right.
helped us in surviving our situation. But then we get beyond that, and then it's like we become aware.
Right.
Awareness is the first step, but once you have
Right.
that awareness, then it's the taking the action. And
Mm.
and what I always say to people is, and when you can't do it yourself, that's when you go to God. Okay, I've got this
Mm.
awareness. I can't do it, but can you help me to take the next step or to become willing to take the next step, you know? So,
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. And just before we close, it makes me
yeah.
think that during COVID, I mean, a lot happened, especially, with alcohol. It's such a I
Oh,
mean, there's
yeah,
a lot out there now about a lot of women that even, the drinking during COVID became such a big thing. It's an acceptable thing socially in many ways. And so,
right.
I think there's a lot of people that really hurt through COVID wasn't just a virus, a pandemic. It was a virus in many other ways. It brought a lot of broken things that were already kind of fractured to the surface,
Yes.
right?
Yes, definitely.
And I think people are still kind of recovering from that, and they need help and support, and they need you.
Oh gosh.
Um,
So,
you know?
so yes, so true. I mean, it's just, and even the children, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I have
Yes.
Wow, I have friends who work with children and the anxiety and the depression in children and the suicide rates. I mean, everything. It's heartbreaking. It's
Yeah.
heartbreaking. But again, that's where I feel like, I can't, I have to show up. I feel
Right.
like we have this little light within us, and there's a
Mhm.
lot of darkness in this world right now.
Yeah.
It's like once we have this glowing light, we gotta step out, let it shine, and it's I think of sometimes at our, like, Christmas service, like, the all the lights will be off, and you light a candle, and then you spread it, and you spread it, and the whole church then is lit up by candlelight,
Mm.
and I just think as each one of us has that lit we all have that light within, it just
Mm.
might be blanketed right now with some heavy stuff, but it's like, if I can help you ignite your light and let it shine, and then you do that to the next person and to the
Mm.
next, we just keep sharing it, things will brighten up, so, yeah,
Mm. I love that. That's a beautiful way to end and kind of pay it forward too. So
yeah, yeah.
that's really beautiful. So in closing, I am going to put all your everywhere everybody can meet you in the show notes.
Okay.
And then as we were talking earlier too, if someone wants to meet with you, we kind of talked about a little offer. Would you like to share kind of what they can do to connect with you? If they mention Hello Redlow, they heard you on the podcast, kind of share what you offer, how they can connect with you and get some coaching.
Sure. So right now, and it will be in the show notes, but I have on Facebook, I have a group. It's called Next Level Living with Coach Katie, and there's a link to that. So anybody can feel free to jump onto that. Click that link and ask to be. It's a private group, but I'll you just answer some questions and then I'll let you in there.
Perfect.
And I have an email address, which is nextlevelliving444@gmail.com. And people who are listening to this show, if they are interested in a introductory vibrant living breakthrough session, I would be happy to do that. It's about a 20-minute to 30-minute call where we'll just kind of talk about where you're at, and I can give you some little mini steps in terms of helping you to navigate maybe where you might go next. And so I don't know how many of those offerings I can make at this point, but as long as my schedule allows, I'm happy to make that offer. So I guess they can just mention your name or Hello
Hello
Redlow,
Redlow. Yeah.
whatever, however.
Perfect.
Yeah, and so, I do have, my podcast is only on Spotify right now. It's new. We just started it over the summer, and what I want to do is find out how to get that to my YouTube channel. I'm not real techy, and I want to be able to upload those to my YouTube channel, which doesn't have anything right now. So, and I don't think I gave you that, but I'll give you, I think my YouTube channel is at next level, or no, at forever spiraling up. That's what it's
Oh,
at.
beautiful.
I
Okay.
can add that to the thing.
Yeah.
I'll give you some updated notes. Yeah, so I think that's enough. People can find me on social media, and so thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
This has been amazing. You've dropped some really fabulous gold nuggets. I think you've given people hope and encouragement, and they get to see who you are as a coach, which is amazing.
So thank you, Terry.
Thank you. This has been beautiful. And so Everyone, I'll just put all this in the show notes. Thank you again. Merry Christmas. Thank you for being here. This is a gift. It's going to be a gift to everyone, all the
Thank
women that listen
you.
in. And, we just keep stepping forward one step at a time and lifting each
Yes.
other up and encouraging each other to live our best life. And what do you for next level living? That's I love that.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
so great.
Yes. Next level living. And what I always say, my tagline for years has been, I'm on a journey of living my best life and helping others to do the same, so
There you
yeah.
go. We'll end on that note.
Thank you
Merry
so much
Christmas.
for having me. Merry Christmas to you too.